Welcome to episode number 4 of the Ask Dr. Weir Show. In today's episode, we are going to talk about stress and how stress affects your health and then what we can do about it. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So stress. Stress is this little thing we don't talk about often, but it is pervasive in our culture worldwide. And it is job stress, it's family stress, it's stress from the news, it's stress from, just day-to-day life and relationships and all of these different things. And what I tell my patients is we're not going to get away from stress. It's just not going to happen. But what we can do is we can limit how our bodies manifest stress. And what that means is we can limit what stress actually does to our physical health. And we can do that through a variety of ways. We're going to talk about that in a second. But let me quickly tell you a story. I had a patient. He asked me a question. I'm a chiropractor. And he asked me, I said, Doc, I got this pain in my neck. He said, I don't know what it's coming from. But he said, could it be coming from stress? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And he said, well, gosh, how? How does that happen? And what I explained to him is that stress does a wide variety of things to us. But when it comes to musculoskeletal health and our necks, one of the many things that can occur is when we're under stress, it stimulates what's called the sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system, you probably heard that word, but it is your fight or flight part of your nervous system. So when we're in danger, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in and we go into fight or flight. And what that is let's say we're running away from a saber-toothed tiger, right? Back in our caveman days. I know you run away from saber-toothed tigers as much as I do, but if we're running away from that, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. And what happens is our pupils will dilate so we can see better, right? All of the blood will go to our extremities so we can run faster and fight harder. But one of the other things that happens is that we tend to get into a very fight-centric posture, right? Or a protective posture. And we kind of get the hunched shoulders, the rolled shoulders, they get up towards the ears and everything is here. And that hyperloads the trapezius muscles and a lot of the muscles of the neck and the joints that over time, if we're in that state of stress for too long, can put a tremendous amount of strain on the neck and create neck pain. He said, oh God, that makes so much sense. I think that's what's going on. And I agreed with him. But some of the other effects of stress can be that our digestive systems will slow down because we don't need to digest lunch when we're running away from saber-toothed tiger. We can do that when we get away. Our immune systems will turn down. They won't work as well because we don't need to heal from the big swipe saber-toothed tiger took out of us while we're running away. We can do that when we get away. So the sympathetic nervous system is very important because it allows us to survive. But equally important is the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is your rest, relax, and heal portion of the nervous system. It's when we get away from danger, it allows us to heal from our injuries. It's when we get away from danger, we can finally digest the food. When we get away from danger, the blood can go back to our hearts and lungs and organs to continue progression of normal health and wellness. But here's the problem. Typically, as a human being in today's culture, we are living in sympathetic activity predominantly. And we're constantly in this state of fight or flight. And over time, that's having massive detrimental effects. I see it daily in my patients with neck and back pain and headaches. We're seeing an epidemic of digestive problems and autoimmune disorders. And in my humble opinion, I think part of that is because we're living in this state of constant stress. So one of the things I want to do here, this is actually going to be a 4-part series of Ask the Dr. Weir Show. In that I want to go over some of the stress busters, I call them. And we have some really neat conduits to relieve stress and the manifestation of that stress. And it's through our senses. And we can utilize our senses to help minimize the effect of the sympathetic activity or stress that it's getting on our body and bring us further into parasympathetic activity. So our senses are sight, smell, touch, taste, sight, smell, taste, and hearing and touch. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. So the first one I want to talk about is hearing, actually. And we can utilize music to help drive parasympathetic activity in a really neat way. So there's been a lot of studies done on this, but one was done at Harvard University. And what they found was that people who listen to classical music drive a parasympathetic activity within their nervous systems. And they get into rest, relax, and heal, and they can calm down. They used heart rate variability testing. They used a lot of really neat testing to assess this. But we can use these kinds of musics and these kind of sounds to stimulate parasympathetic activity. Now, I know what you're saying. Some of you, you're going, I hate classical music. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be classical music. It has to be something that you can relax to, and that you can slow your heart rate to, and that you can slow your pulse rate to. The research shows that's classical music, so I'm on board with that. I listen to classical music and things that calm me down. And usually what I'll do is I'll put it in the background while I'm doing my chart notes and while I'm writing and doing those sorts of things to drive that parasympathetic activity. So I would implore you, find some music, find some classical music, find some sort of sound that calms you down, that allows you to get into a state of rest, because that's the first sense we're going to use, is hearing, to drive that parasympathetic activity. All right, so that was episode number 4 of the Ask Dr. Weir Show. How does stress affect our physical health and what we can do about it? In the next episode, episode number 5, we're going to talk about how smell has a powerful impact on driving parasympathetic activity. So click on the next video and we're going to get to that next.